ụlọ nsọ gị Chukwu ka anyị na-abata, bịakwute ya bịa zuru ike. Anya bịawa ịsọpụrụ gị ugbu a, bịakwute ya bịa zuru ike. Bịa o bịakwute ya, bịakwute ya, bịakwute ya bịa zuru ike. Bịa o bịakwute ya, bịa o bịakwute ya, bịakwute ya bịa zuru ike. Chukwu nna n'ụlọ gị ka anyị na-akpọ gị, bịakwute ya bịa zuru ike. Otito na-adịrị gị mgbe niile, bịakwute ya bịa zuru ike. Bịa o bịakwute ya, bịakwute ya, bịakwute ya bịa zuru ike. Bịa o bịakwute ya, bịa o bịakwute ya, bịakwute ya bịa zuru ike.
Otito niile dịrị Chineke, ọbasi dị elu, Chukwu obiọma, Chidi ebere, Olisa nwa amara, ka ụzọ anyị niile ọbụla bụrụ ihe, ka ihe ọbụla kpatara aka bụrụ sọ mma, ka ụwa niile site n'ozi ọma anyị a nwụsị obi aṅụrị taa mgbe niile ebighị ebi. Ọfọ ya gazie ise. All praises to Chi, the Creator, Chi, the Supreme Being, Chi, the Good, Chi, the Magnificent, the Merciful, Chi, the Magnificent with grace. Let every way of our lives be light. Let all our acts be crowned with good. And may the word prosper from our ministry, now and forever. So let it be. Amen.
He said,
Agụnwoke, Imanye Kao, Ndewo, Ekene is tied up today and she's not going to be with us. So we're going to run the show today. And I'm sure you're aware of the topic already. And thank you for joining us again from the motherland, Nigeria.
Thank you. Yeah.
Specifically, Lagos. So we have an interesting show today, Divya. You know, the topic is really very engaging, and it's something that because of the misunderstanding that people have when it comes to the commonalities amongst religions, we've decided that today we'll spend a little time and talk about spiritual commandments and creeds, and kind of do a comparative journey, between a couple of religions, see what it is that we have in common. And I'm sure with you and your expertise in African history, and as a Dibia, we're going to have fun today. So today's topic, again, is spiritual commandments and creeds, and it's a comparative journey. And before we go into it, we have to ask a basic question so that people are acclimated with exactly what this topic is about. Every religion has a creed. Now, the question is, what is a creed? A creed is a statement of religious communities' shared beliefs, often in the form of brief affirmations of faith. Creeds are also known as confessions of faith, symbols or statements of faith. The word creed comes from the Latin word credere, which means to believe. Now, I'm explaining that in English because that's what we're communicating with right now. And since people in our audience, not everybody speaks Igbo, so we are limited to assigning one common language that we all understand. So that's why I'm describing or defining, creed, using English. In Africa, I'm sure it's the same thing, except that, what I just described to you in English, you do that in Igbo language or any other African language or any language, that is out there. So every community, every religion, every spiritual religious philosophy has a creed. Now, with the exception of probably Hinduism, all religions have a creed. In Buddhism, for example, there are 5 precepts. They have something they call the 5 precepts, and then they have the 4 noble truths, and then you have the Shin Buddhist creed. And what do these creeds have in common? Because when we talk about creed, we don't want to talk about them as disjointed philosophies that have nothing in common with one another. Give an example. In a Buddhist creed, in one of the 5 precepts, which is a creed of Buddhism, it says, not killing any living thing is part of that creed. Not stealing from anyone. Not having too much sensual pleasure. Not engaging in wrong speech. Not taking intoxicants that cloud the mind. Those are 5 precepts. Now let's see, what does that have in common with, let's say, the 10 commandments? One of the precepts of Buddhism is not killing any living being. And in Christianism or in Judaism, it is thou shalt not kill. And in African belief system, it's the same thing. My conscience is clear. I did not kill anyone. I did not instruct anybody to kill on my behalf. So you could see that as far as spiritual or religious creeds are concerned, there are basic creeds within each philosophy that has commonality, that crosses, any cultural or philosophical lines, has one meaning and resides in the human consciousness all across the board, regardless of where we're located in this world. Thou shalt not lie does not belong to any specific spiritual philosophy. The Buddhists believe that thou shalt not lie, which is tantamount to engaging in wrong speech. Agaloya is part of our African spiritual philosophy across every African group. So the idea here is that there is nothing in religious philosophies that don't have any commonality. The only exception, as far as belief in a supreme being is concerned, will probably be Hinduism, that deals more with human behavior and the environment and how you fit into it and what your responsibilities are, to your environment and your fellow human being, and how you have to foster certain healthy attitudes so that people can coexist in peace and harmony. They put the onus on you as an individual as opposed to ascribing anything to a higher power other than your ability or capabilities as a human being in this world to take care of your environment and take care of one another. That's really where the difference lies. But as far as what is it that we have in common, most religions have everything in common, particularly religions that believe in a supreme being. Most religions that believe in a supreme being share common creeds. And the only difference between all these creeds are things that are put in there that more or less identifies a specific culture, or how the wording may be presented to make it look like it's something different or something that is specific to a particular culture. But it really isn't. It's all about presentation. But the core commandments of thou shalt not lie, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness, and and so on and so forth, goes across all religious philosophies, across all cultures, including African spiritual philosophy. In Chiism, in Gordianism, we also have the Chiist Creed or the Gordian Creed. The entire spiritual philosophy and purpose of Chiism are comprised into the following creed of Chiist philosophy. And we cut across all African spirituality. So I'm going to run through a few of them just to kind of inflame your curiosity and perhaps heighten your understanding of why we shouldn't really put one another down, regardless of what your religion affiliation is. Because first of all, number one, we have a lot in common that separates us. There's a lot of commonalities between all religions. All of us have the same purpose, which is supplication to a higher being. Again, minus perhaps Hinduism. Okay? So let me go through all of them and then discuss it with Dibia Chiedozie, and hopefully we'll be able to, show our audience that there's really more that we have in common than separates us. Number one, I believe in the Almighty Chineke, God in English, creator of the heavens and earth, as my source of inspiration, strength, and as my protector. Means that I believe in a higher being. I believe in something greater than myself, and that something is the Almighty God. I believe that I have a duty of supplication because I understand that I'm not responsible for the life-sustaining forces that makes my existence in this world possible. I'm not responsible for the air I breathe. I'm sure that every human being across all cultures feel the same way, that they're not responsible for the air that they breathe. We are not responsible for the creation of the animals that we eat, and we eat animals across all cultures. Thou shalt not kill. It's not a Buddhist thing. It's not a Christian thing. It's not a Chiist thing. It's not a Hindu thing. It's not a Zoroastrian thing. It's not about illuminate. It is about the commonalities that we have in our different faiths that exist due to, number one, geography, our environment, where we're located, and what it is that we have to do in that environment to survive. In Chiist philosophy, when Chineke created the woman and then created the man, or created the man, woman, just trying to be politically correct, Chineke said to them, everything that I've created around you is for your good. From trial and error, you will be able to determine those things that are good for you to help perpetuate your existence on earth. I will be in you always. In times of trouble, you will always hear a faint voice in me telling you what is right and what is wrong. That's your conscience. All cultures have it. Every human being has it. And every spiritual person has it. The only way you don't have it is if you're a mental case and disjointed from reality. We all have that in common. Then, secondly, we in Chiism, as Pan-Africanists, we believe in the universal brotherhood and sisterhood of man and woman under the parenthood of one God. One God, not many gods. We're not going into deities and all that stuff. Angels, we're not talking about that. We're just talking about the Creator. Parenthood of one God. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. Do unto others as you would like others to do unto you. Thou shalt not kill. Ebulamado. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not lie. And in respect and obedience to elders, just laws, and retributive justice. Now, in respect and obedience to elders, just laws, and in retributive justice. Puts a little bit of African spiritual culture into this particular creed of I believe in the universal brotherhood or sisterhood of man, woman, under the parenthood of one God. It's common amongst all religions except for Hinduism. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. It's African. It's also British. It's also French. It's also Australian. It's also Mayan and Aztec. We all believe in love your neighbor as you love yourself, do unto others as you would want others to do unto you. It's a common creed. There's nothing fantastical about it in terms of, oh, only this specific religion believes this. We all believe that. Whether you're Chinese, Japanese, Korean, African, European, South American, Mexican, it doesn't matter. We all believe that. Thou shalt not kill. We all believe that. Thou shalt not steal. We all believe that. Thou shalt not commit adultery. We all believe that. It's not a Christian thing. It's not an African thing. It's not a Buddhist thing. It's a human thing. We all believe that. Thirdly, I believe that every human being, consciously or unconsciously, looks up to something above him or her as their source of inspiration. And that something is the Almighty God, Almighty Chineke. I believe that every human being, consciously or unconsciously, looks up to something above him or herself for their source of inspiration. In Buddhism, same thing. Belief in the Supreme Being. In Judaism, belief in the Supreme Being. In Christianism, belief in the Supreme Being. In Zoroastrianism, Ahura Mazda, believe in a Supreme Being. We all have that in common. So it's not about whether you believe in God and you don't believe in God. Even if you don't believe in God, if your spirituality and your philosophy or spiritual philosophy dictates or requires that you treat others with respect, that you treat your environment with respect, that you do everything within your power to foster good relationships with your neighbor and your environment to help perpetuate your existence in this world. If you believe that there's really no difference between you and the person who believes in the Supreme Being, because in the end, it is the result that is important. Does believing in God help you to foster good relationships with your fellow human being and your environment? Does putting the onus on you as an individual to regulate your behavior, pointing out all the pitfalls of bad behavior, directing you and telling you the things that you need to do to be a decent human being? If you're able to do that, I got nothing against you, because in the end, we all believe, at least in African spirituality anyway, Madu Buchibe, that God you seek is in you. Beyond the forces of nature, you control everything else. You control everything else. And nature, to a certain extent, controls your behavior in terms of how you relate to your environment. Next, I believe that Chineke made the world a paradise of happiness for humanity, but that we have made the world a terrible place for ourselves, with too much quarrel with our fellow man and woman, or fellow humans, over methods of God worship. This particular creed, which is the fourth Chase creed, is simply stressing that we have everything that we need. We have everything that we need to make this world a paradise. And the only reason why we haven't achieved this paradise that we seek on earth It's because we're spending a whole lot of time quarreling with one another over methods of God worship without recognizing how geography and culture plays a role in supplication methods. It's never been about who believes in God and who doesn't believe in God. Even people that believe in God, if they see somebody who does not believe in God, but that you have exemplary character, trust me, they're not going to spend a whole lot of time worrying about whether you believe in God or not. The only time to worry about that is if their intention is not to foster good relationship with their fellow human beings and live in peace. If their intent is to dominate, then that's a whole different conversation to have. And some religions in this world, and I'm not gonna mention names, but their purpose is to dominate. They preach exclusive truth, my way or the highway. You have to see the world, you have to see the Creator through my own prison. And if you can't do that, then you're the bad guy. You're going to burn in hell, whatever that means, without any consideration in terms of your journey, how you got where you are right now. It's just this blanket condemnation. Either you do it this way or you're burning in hell. Who died and made you king for you to tell anybody that their point of view spiritually is wrong and yours is right? The only thing that can be right or wrong about anybody's spirituality is going to be based on the creed that we all have in common. If your religion says that thou shalt kill, yes, I think as a human being, we all have a right to condemn you because you're fostering violence or promoting it. We have the right to do that. The next, I believe that religious concepts are inspired by our desire to offer thanks to the Creator for Chineke's goodness, God's goodness to humanity. Let me repeat that. I believe that religious concepts are inspired by our desire to offer thanks to Chineke, to the Creator, for Chineke's goodness to humanity. Which religion that believes in the Creator that excludes this particular creed? None. Because it is our desire as human beings to offer thanks to the Creator for the life-sustaining forces around us that made religion in its etymology possible, which simply means a realization that life-sustaining forces are not of your own making, and giving thanks to whoever or whatever created these forces that keep you alive. Whatever created it is what you end up worshiping, giving thanks to, acknowledging as greater than yourself, as the only reason why you are alive as a human being. All religions, for the most part, believe that. Just about all of them. We have 18 creeds, Chia's creed, 18 of them. The general understanding in Christianism is they have 10. Egypt has a whole lot, 100 and something of them. And some people believe that what's in the 10 Commandments was a direct siphoning off of the Egyptian Book of the Dead. That may well be. The only reason why I don't spend time on that camp, I'm not discounting it, but the only reason why I don't spend time in there is because everything in that 10 Commandments exists in every spiritual philosophy. And the only things in that commandment that does not exist in other spiritual philosophies are commandments that, for the most part, identifies the spiritual or historical or religious experience of a particular group of people. For example, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. In Judaism, that means nothing to me. It doesn't mean anything. Because we don't have any Sabbath day as prescribed in Judaism or in Christianism. There might be some equivalence, but as far as the Sabbath day in itself is concerned, it's not part of my experience or history as an African. It just isn't. So I'm going to hold it down here for a second and invite our dear colleague to, spend some time on the topic and share his knowledge and understanding with us. Dibechi Edozie, over to you.
Okay, Dibi, okay, Madam. Greetings to every one of us. Dibi Ochaja has done immense justice to the topic. So I will just go to those other areas that we complement what he has said already. Now, if we look at the topic, spiritual commandments and creeds, a comparative journey. Well, I believe I'm speaking to adults, and so for now, you know already that religious creeds, if you examine them, you will see that a whole lot of them have similarities. And then there are minute differences. So the question is, I like to speak what is responsible for these commonalities and differences. Well, the first instance that we are rational beings. That's the difference between us and other creatures. Whether those creatures are plants, animals, or they are angels or demons. The one particular thing about the species of creatures called human beings, mother, is that we are a total fusion of a spiritual and material essence put together. So that's why in Igbo, mad is addressed as Okaram Mad, Okaram Mo. If you understand yourself that way, you become a dibia. You are half material and half spiritual. And so the fusion of the two will produce madu, especially when we define the ontology of madu, the concept of onwe, self. So we are the only ones with that understanding of self, onwe madu, myself, as a human being. And when we look into that ontology, we discover that we have the highest evolved form of Eke, dealing with facticity, manifestation of Chukwukika Biama in us. That's why we say we represent the image of Chineke. And that's also the same thing with our Chi and our Agu. Now, if you look at the concept of Agu is the point of formation and also the point of formlessness, both form and formlessness. And so with Agu, we are capable of positive and negative actions, and we can interpret them. So we are also endowed with Echiche, thinking, and we are endowed with Uche, intellect, rationality. We are also endowed with the power of imagination, Mfu, and all of that. Now, these alone, these powers, that mental powers of intellect, thinking, consciousness, imagination, makes it possible for us to interpret experiences with notions and ideas, to reflect, project, introspect upon our ideas and our experiences, and make further interpretations, make conjectures, assumptions. Right? So it is by this power that we are able to conjecture of all types of beings in the world that this earth, this universe, must be the creation of an almighty, invisible force. That's how we arrived at it. We can either do that inductively, by which we look at things in the world and then begin to say, connect them in ascending a dimension. Then from there we conclude that there must be an almighty that is responsible for this whole creation. And that is called starting the argument for the proof of God from the material level to the non-material level. And so that's called cosmological argument. Or we start it from the existence of a supreme being that must be the ultimate initiator of all material things. And so we start from the invisible to the visible, and we call that ontological argument. Or we combine the two of both inductive and deductive, ascending and descending dimensions. And then we begin to also think whether this being is pure being or pure force, or is it in the human image? So all of these will, how we interpret this as a people, will determine whether our God is a personification of the human attribute, or our God is pure force. Like there's a similarity in belief system between African traditional religions, African spirituality, and to some extent Christianity and Islam, in the sense that they are anthropomorphic. So there's anthropomorphism in traditional African spirituality or traditional African religions, in the sense that we talk about we talk about praying to Chineke, we call on forces, we make prayers, and so on and so forth. In this way, there are similarities between our own way of looking at the world and the Christian way or the Muslim way of looking at the world. However, there's also a connection between the African way of looking at the world and the Buddhist, the Shinto, and the Confucian Taoist way of looking at the world. For them, that Almighty is not a being that sits somewhere, is a force, is a universal consciousness, universal reason. In that way, Africans don't see Chukwu as a being that sits in heaven. They see Chineke as a force that permeates everything and is everywhere at the same time, which is why it can manifest its essence in all physical things, sustains them by giving them a force of animation. And so the presence of energy in every material thing is the presence of God, of Chukwu Okike Abiama. Here we see similarity in structure between traditional African spirituality and the spirituality of the Far East. However, the spirituality of the Far East may not have, and again, now I'm sure it's a similarity. Traditionally, our ancestors did not bother to begin to describe Chukwu, how he looks, how he does not look.
Yes.
For us, Chukwu Okike Abiama, Osanobua, Olodumare, Ubangidi, Tamuno is remotus and in situs. It does not interfere in human affairs. It has set the universe and established hierarchies. And then there are ways of approaching Chukwu Okike Abiama through the ministers, through the divinities, and who are not God. They are not God or gods, whether in small letter or big letter, or semi-big or semi-small letter. They are not God in any way. They are simply appointees of Chukwu Okike Abiama to represent him or represent her or represent it in the physical universe of human beings, so that we can relate with that invisible force. All right? And so here you will see that the African traditional spirituality has a balance of both anthropomorphic and non-anthropomorphic spirituality. Then again, you'll find that it is not possible for us as human beings to operate without rules. We may attach these rules to spirituality. We may attach them to religion, by which we talk about spiritual laws, religious laws, or spiritual creeds. Here we talk about spiritual commandments and creeds. when we also make rules for the regulation of our conduct, how we behave, without attaching it to any spirituality or religion, they become simply morality.
Yeah.
But the thing there is that if the universe is governed by reason, and the human being has that power of rationality in us, one of the essential attributes or characteristics of reason is that reason cannot operate without rules. So reason must make rules which its reason must abide by. Why? This is known as a process of causality and instrumentality. Because for us to be able to move from point A to point B, there must be rules. And that's where we are different from animals. If we do not make rules and obey the rules we have made, then it is not possible for us to move from point A to point B. The magic will not be possible. Miracle will not be possible. Prayer will not be possible. Because when we pray, make supplications, make incantations, do a sacrifice, they are all processes of rational processes of causality and instrumentality, because we want to achieve something. So all religions will have, all spiritualities will have all these inculcated into their main domains that will now form their characteristics, tenets, and features. It's a question of nuances and mirrors and approaches. But insofar as there is reason, there must be creeds, there must be commandments. And these commandments are not for the invisible forces. They are for us human beings. And they are meant to guide and guard us, direct us on how we should move from lower level of existence to higher level of existence, making a demarcation between us as human beings and all other entities as non-human beings. I'd like to submit it at this point. Thank you.
Absolutely wonderful summation. I appreciate that. That was really, really good. Again, we stress the commonality and stop treating, religion as if the differences, outweigh the common good that we can all do. We are theistic, okay? We're not like Buddhism, Confucianism, Taoism, and all that stuff, or Jainism, like DBH was talking about. We believe in a supreme being, like all the other gods, as he had, as opposed to the other religions that don't necessarily believe in a supreme being and are not really into God worship and all that kind of stuff. As a matter of fact, Hinduism, right, emphasizes following one's, what do they call it? I think it's called Dharma, which is you have a duty, as a human being, as opposed to spending your time worshiping deities. Hinduism doesn't spend time doing that. It's more about you as an individual, because in the end, regardless of whatever praying you're doing, you're responsible for the relationships that you have. There's no magic, like DBH was saying. There's no old man in the sky, at least when it comes to African spirituality. And beyond the modern Abrahamic representation, right? There's really no religion that talks about some old man with a great beard up in the sky somewhere. It's just not that kind of stuff. In the end, it's really about us and how we relate to one another. That's really what's going to make a difference in our spiritual lives, and also how we relate to each other to make life a little bit worth living, as opposed to living in conflict all the time. And every religion that preaches exclusive truth, in the end, that's really what they do. They rumple social harmony, and promote violence, because they're telling you that you don't do it our way, then it's over for you. So again, as I mentioned before, we talked about what we have in common. Then we talked about some things that are added in these creeds to identify a specific culture in relation to that creed, or add things that is intended to promote a certain spiritual way of living that hopefully promotes social harmony, where we can all coexist without, regardless of what our creed or what our culture is. Just this clear understanding that we owe a duty to each other to love. I mean, in Chiism, we have a saying that love is the highest religion, and any religion that cannot treat its adherents to love is no religion at all. It really isn't. And that is really, really very, very deep. Love is the highest religion. And any religion that cannot teach its adherents to love and tolerate and understand, share ideas, that's not a religion at all. As a matter of fact, Hinduism, for example, promotes that. I mean, heavily. In Chiism, we believe, for example, there's no sense quarreling with our fellow human being over their religion's doctrines, beliefs, or methods of God worship, which differ from our own manner of satisfying the common purpose of thanksgiving to the Almighty. That's what we're trying to do in the first place. It's about us understanding what our duty is, not just because our duty in terms of supplication to the Creator, an acknowledgement that without the Creator, we don't exist. Nothing exists in the universe without that acknowledgement. But then again, we also have to realize and understand that philosophically speaking, Chineke, God, only exists in our consciousness, in our minds. Now, I can't speak for the lion. I don't know if the lion goes to church on Sunday or has those kinds of rules like Dibe Chiedozie has talked about. I don't know if the cockroach has, wakes up in the morning and packs a lunch for the baby cockroach to go to school. I can't get down to their level to see if they're actually philosophically and consciously interacting with a supreme being. Unless I'm an ant, I can't live in their world. Unless I'm a lion, I can't live in the lion's world. And if I end up in the world of the lion, I'm dead. Because I'm not equipped to survive in the world of the lion. It doesn't matter if I have a machine gun. It doesn't matter if I have a tank. I have a jet plane with bombs on it that I could drop on the lion. Those are things that allow me to dominate my environment the best I can because I'm not equipped physically to dominate it. So my domination is intellectually. I could dominate other creatures by creating things from my mind that gives me the power to dominate them. In other words, the lion may have all the claws and may have the teeth, the fangs. They may have all that, but I could kill that lion with a gun. But if you put me in the lion's world and I don't have no claws, I don't have those sharp canine teeth, I'm dead. You put me with an elephant, I don't have the size, I will be crushed. Put me next to a python, I can't fight it off. It will curl itself around me and eat me. And the only way for me to survive in that environment are two ways. Number one, I have to develop the capacity to adjust mentally, to observe and understand what can kill me and what ain't gonna kill me. When Chineke created Ifentana, that Chineke gave him a commandment. Everything that I've created around you is for your own good, from trial and error. You will be able to determine those things that are good for you to help perpetuate your existence on earth. It is only through trial and error that we understood in Igbo land that okra soup is good and eating okra is good for you. Meanwhile, there are a whole lot of people that ate other plants and died of poison, that were poisoned by the food they were eating, by the fish that they caught and ate, and it killed them. Through trial and error, you understood what to eat and what not to eat, what will sustain you and what will kill you, which animal not to mess with and which animal to hunt. And the only way you could do all those things is developing a natural mental domination that allows you to create instruments that will help you dominate your environment for you to survive. We created the spear to survive, not just to survive our environment in terms of the animals that may be coming at us, and also created a spear so that we could hunt those animals and eat. But we also created it to defend ourselves from people that want to either dominate us, take what is rightfully ours, so on and so forth, whatever the reasons may be. Hinduism, for example, believe the same thing. I'm bringing this up so that we don't get stuck in this idea that the answer to life only lies with us, because it doesn't. We are just a part of this cauldron of life. Sometimes what you put in it is what you get. Hinduism is one of those religions that believe that imemma inatamma, imenjo inatanjo, what you reap in this world is going to depend on your action. It doesn't always hold true, because we know that life happens, and we understand that good things can happen to bad people and bad things can happen to good people. The children out there in the battlefields of Africa, in Somalia or in the Sudans where they're fighting wars, the children in Palestine, for example, what sin did they commit? Even in Christianity, Jesus said, "Let the children come to me." Why? Because they are without sin. So you have to understand, any religion or faith that does not recognize that we have more in common than separates us, any religion that does not preach love and live love, any religion that does not understand that the true mark of civilization is, or should I say the true definition of civilization is not technological know-how, economic opulence, all that kind of good modern stuff. But when two people see eye to eye, tolerate each other, and defend to death the right of the other to survive, therein lies the true definition of civilized behavior. You know, when somebody tells you, man, you need to act civilized, they're not telling you you need to go make a gun. They're telling you to be civil. They're telling you to be understanding. They're telling you to look at what we have in common as opposed to what separates us. They're telling you they are no different from you. They're telling you, please understand that there's a lot between us that can make us friends, that can create a good relationship between us so that we can live in this world in peace, so that the heaven that we're seeking somewhere outside of us, the heaven that we're seeking, that we can only attain only when we are dead, that heaven and hell is right here on earth, because there's some people on earth living good. There's some people on earth that just don't have the same kind of problem that the people in Palestine are having. They have money to sustain themselves. They live in peaceful environments. They have healthy relationships around them. They're enjoying life. They appreciate their fellow human beings and understand that life means nothing without peace. A life of conflict is no life at all. You just lived your life in conflict. What did you enjoy? Nothing. The promise of heavenly bliss when you die. And a lot of religions promise that. It's not a Christian thing. It's not a Muslim thing. Like Hinduism in African spirituality, we have our own version, but our own version is different. It's called reincarnation. And when you get it right, and when you finally get it right, hopefully, then you can now rest with the ancestors, wherever they are in the spirit realm. So there's similarities in life and death. There's similarities in what happens to you when you behave badly. We have similarities, in terms of what happens to you when you are a terrible human being and you die. What happens to your soul? Do you pay a price in the afterlife? Almost every religion will tell you, yes, we have that in common. It is not that belief that separates us. It is, number one, insisting that your way is correct. And then number two, not seeing these similarities. And not seeing these similarities is usually because you want to dominate the other person. Because if your goal was God worship, if your goal was recognizing the importance of Chineke in your life and the importance of maintaining a good relationship with your environment and your fellow human beings, which is part of your environment, then you'll understand that there's a lot about us that is common. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we have these commonalities in our creeds. Then we have creeds, things that we put in there that, number one, identifies a specific culture to that particular religious philosophy. And then number two, to promote something, maybe to promote peace in the world as a way of explaining the idea that we should live in peace with one another, because we're spiritual human beings, and the only way to enjoy this life and foster this heaven on earth that we're looking for is to have a good relationship with one another. So when we talk about adding things to a creed that either identifies a specific culture within that creed of commonalities, but also as a way of maybe manifesting an idea that promotes healthy relationships. So we, in African spirituality, for example, the seventh creed, we believe that every human being has their way, organized or unorganized, systematized or unsystematized, of expressing the necessary gratitude to Chineke, to God. That in this fact, every human being satisfies the purpose of religion or God worship. Everybody. The statement, this creed of Chisholm that I just read to you, is common amongst all religions that are not preaching exclusive truth. I use Hinduism a lot because there's a lot of African spiritual tenets in there when you study Buddhism. And one of the Hinduism, and one of their belief is that every human being has their own way of worshiping and will do everything not to put any other religion down. It's part of Hinduism. I can't say that for a whole bunch of other religions, but that's the truth. I believe that there is no sense in quarreling with my fellow man over his religious doctrine, beliefs, or methods of God worship that differ from my own manner of satisfying the common purpose of thanksgiving to the Almighty. Which religion that believes in a creator that doesn't believe in thanksgiving to the Almighty Creator, that doesn't believe in reverence to the Almighty Creator, that doesn't acknowledge that the Almighty Creator, from a spiritual perspective, is responsible for life-sustaining forces in this world, because we did not create it. I believe that to base association of man with man, nation with nation, on the grounds of common religion and faith is sheer folly. I believe that every human being should have the right to worship Chineke or God in the way they understand best without bitterness. I believe that any attempt to force a person directly or indirectly to accept a particular faith or any particular faith, religious doctrine, or methods of God worship rumples social harmony. I believe that organized religious bodies, as they are known in the world today, though the fundamental principles underlying their purpose are good, have by each in its own way canvassing to have all men embrace its doctrines, arouse unhealthy competition and mutual jealousy amongst themselves, and have blown the world into a tumultuous asylum of warring religious factions. This particular creed discusses as a recent phenomenon organized religion, conversing for souls. They say the traffic in the soul of man is a lucrative business. It's lucrative financially, and it's lucrative politically. You know, religion and politics are strange bedfellows, but they coexist. In fact, one cannot exist without the other one. Because tyranny is not politics. You don't have to get somebody to like you to do anything. So I don't consider tyranny as political, rulership, so to speak. Because you don't have to get anybody's approval for anything. If you're an emperor and the ultimate power, the one that has the power of life and death in your hands, you think I care about convincing anybody about anything? There's no politics in dictatorships. Except politics maybe with your cabinet. Maybe there are some people that you may treat favorably just to make sure that they don't organize an opposition to you. You know, that kind of stuff. But in terms of getting approval from the people and the masses, no, dictatorships have no politics in them. It's just vile cruelty. That's it. I believe that if the universal brotherhood or sisterhood of man under the parenthood of one God shall be a reality, if the kingdom of God shall come, the traditional African attitude of live and let live in all matters of religion is the indispensable catalyst. Biri can biri, live and let live. Most religions have that. As a matter of fact, if it's not Abrahamic, no other religion spends their time trying to convince another religion that they're wrong. Again, I bring in the Hinduism thing. And the reason why I kind of bring these things up and talk about these commonalities from my Nkomi, from the Nkomi that I've gotten as Dibia. Understanding scientifically, we have proof that the first humans in this world were Africans. Lucy, there might be somebody even older than that, about 2 million years older than Lucy. Lucy is about 5 million years ago. There's one, I can't remember quite, that it says about like 7 million years ago. But it's all African. And if we believe that human migration started in Africa, would spread all over the world. If we believe that, and if we have scientific proof of it, which we do, then I think it's safe to also say that the idea of religion started in Africa. The idea of spirituality started in Africa. The idea of thou shalt not lie started in Africa. The idea that thou shalt not kill is an African thing. And as we adopted and spread out into various corners of the world, we carried these spiritual philosophies with us, which got changed a little bit because of the environment that we ended up in. And as time, the generations went on, the same principles remained, but some principles were added based on economic, political, and geographical experiences. What do you say about that, Dibeche Edozie? Floor is yours.
Well, I think if you want to look at further uh, um, things that will bring the religions together, it's better to look at all the creeds of the religions. Like you said from the beginning, you discover that no religion says there's no God. They may not have God in the anthropomorphic sense, but there is a concept of a universal force field, as you have in Buddhism. There is a belief in what they call universal consciousness. And the way I look at Buddhism is the way we tap into the internet today. We need our computers, and then with our computers and our engines, we'll tap into the internet and we download what we want. And so in Buddhism, there is no intermediary. It is you and the universal consciousness, because you are just a spark of that universal consciousness. So you sit where you are, and then you project, and then you, as a micro of the macro, unify yourself with the whole strength, rejuvenate yourself, and then you come to the realization that you and the cosmos are one. That's why one of the most ancient chants of Buddhism is Om Mani Padme, meaning hail to man's over self. The human over self is just a spark of the universal consciousness. So they have that, and in Chinese Taoism, you do not have anything about description about God. In fact, Chinese Taoism, it does not even talk about universal consciousness. It talks about Tao as a universal principle that guides all things and how they should behave. So there's a difference between Confucian Taoism and non-Confucian Taoism. And the non-Confucian Taoism says Tao is unknowable and Tao is unnameable. The Confucian Taoism says Tao is nameable. There is the universal Tao of Taos. Then there are specialized Taos. There's Tao of the earth, Tao of the sun, Tao of fatherhood. So Tao of fatherhood defines what it means to be a father. Tao of motherhood defines what it means to be a mother. Tao of daughterhood, Tao of sonhood, Tao of governor, minister, so on and so forth. The Tao of what you bear, or the name you bear, or the office you occupy, defines those things that you must do to be proactive and proficient about that particular office or obligation that you bear to the society and humanity. Now, the thing there is that if you come to our own spirituality, we have this concept of balance. Every religion tries to create a concept of balance. We have a concept of balance. We capture that concept of balance in Igbo spirituality in the principle of Ofonogu, which in the southern part of Africa is called Ubuntu. And then other African people also captured that concept of balance and differently. Then in Yoruba culture, Yoruba spirituality, the Ofonogu is a principle of balance. It's called the principle of Inwatunwosi. That's measure by the right, measure by the left, and then you come to the middle, Watunwosi. All right? And so this issue of creating balance in the midst of diversity is where the problem comes. That's where the problem comes, because for those religions that were able to talk about the middle point, you discover that they are not imperialistic. But for those religions that were not able to create a synergy of a middle point, it's either hell or heaven. And so for those religions that talk about hell or heaven, not hell and heaven, hell or heaven, there's a polarity. Here, this polarity, unwittingly or wittingly, creates absolutist totalitarian temperament. And that promotes religious imperialism. And that's when some civilizations will give themselves the mandate of the burden of the world for them to carry. So it is their duty to tell other civilizations how to worship or how to, the notion of God and so on and so forth. All right? There are other things to it, but that's not what we're focusing. What we're focusing is what's the spiritual commandments and creeds. Why do we have them? So, but we must know that while operating these commandments and creeds, there are nuances. So the emphasis is, for me, is how do we come to the middle? Well, I remember that there's a German anthropologist who said that, I think something shows. He said Europe was coming from matter into spirit and Asia was coming from spirit into matter. And I, in making evaluation of Schultz's anthropological evaluation, said, what about the middle point? That middle point is a problem. And that's where African spirituality, chi spirituality comes in. That we must always strike a middle between matter and spirit. And that's what we call mother, human being. And the whole mission, according to my understanding of Chi's principles, Chi's doctrines, and our own traditional African spirituality, is that our mission is how to strike a balance in the midst of the opposites. And that's why we always emphasize complementarity instead of antagonism. So where the Abrahamic religions see antagonism of the opposite, hell and heaven, hell or heaven, God or Satan, we see a complementarity. So that's why for us, there is no eternal hell, but there is eternal heaven. Here we see that in terms of creeds and commandments and belief system, we see a commonality between traditional African religion or spirituality and those spirituality of the Far East. For them, insofar as there's reincarnation, there can be no eternal hell. Right? So, because everything will have to go through recycling until they attain perfection. So when they attain perfection, they no longer reincarnate, but sparks of them, of those evolved souls, can be sent as special agents to rescue mankind from points of nihilism. That you have in common, we have in common with traditional African spirituality and the spirituality of the Far East, Buddhism, Shintoism, Taoism, Confucianism. We have that in common. Now, if you read through literatures, you'll find that even the Abrahamic religions made room for reincarnation until the evolution of religion as different from spirituality. Beginning with Akhenaten, there was a deliberate attempt to create creeds, human-made creeds, as spiritual commandments and norms. From that point, spirituality was dragged to the point of religion. And religion is more for political control and economic prosperity. Then came the Abrahamic religions and they keyed into that. And so we discovered that from the Nicene Conference, we begin to notice a denial of the doctrine of reincarnation, an emphasis on the doctrine of hell. And so if you're talking about spiritual commandments and creeds, I like to make a difference between human reason resonating with universal reason. And we discover the law, and the laws are there. They are serene, benign. They are not meant to punish anyone forever. We distinguish that between norms that were created for political and economic control. So, how we are going to resolve that, I think we have to look at it in a way that we are now living in a world we call globalized. And if we're living in a world that is globalized, it means that the human world has become like the human body. In the sense that in my body, pain in any part of my body is pain to every part of my body. So if I have, like we say in my own language, yametu anya, yametu nte, yametu nte, yametu imi. Whatever touches the eye touches the nose. If it touches the ear, it touches the eye, and so on and so forth. So no part of the body is independent of the other. All parts of the body are interdependent. So pain in one part of my body is pain to all parts of the body. We are at that state now. And since we are at that stage now, it is proper that we talk about the commonalities, about the spiritual systems. So how do we attain that? How we attain that is to go into dialogue. The dialogue is, we believe we are setting the stage for that dialogue. We are not the first to set that stage. Attempts have been made by KOK. He has made that attempt in the past. Some other spiritual systems have also made that attempt in the past. Pope John Paul II, I think his original name is Carol Wojtyla. So he made an attempt in the past where he called Christians and Muslims to pray together. For that, he received bashing from the extremists. There was a particular cardinal who described that attempt that people met to pray, but they did not agree to pray together. So it was like it was a wishy-washy attempt. And so there have been attempts at this, and the way to resolve it is to say, okay, what are the common things among the religions? No religion says there's no God. No religion says killing is good. No religion says stealing is good. No religion says adultery is good. No religion says unwanted abuse of sex is good. In fact, all the things condemned by morality is what religions and culture and spiritualities condemn. We may have some nuances of difference, like the day we take to be holy, which we call Mbosinso. That's the holy day. The holy day is the day we call the day of Unso. So every people had a day that was holy to them. It may not be every week. It may be once in a month. It may be once in a year. But there must be a day that a particular people keep aside as a day they rest, as a period they observe as holy. So there's a concept of holiness. There's a concept of the profane and the sacred. There's a concept of evil. There's a concept of good. And so today, what we'll be looking at is how do we reconcile, and how to reconcile. We have two options. The way that says for us not to offend ourselves, so let us go secular. So when we go secular, keep your religion to yourself, so be tolerant of each other. So if I am, for instance, a Christian and Dibia Ochoaja is a traditionalist, he keeps his traditionalism with him in his house, and I keep my Christianity with me in my house. When we come to the public space, we go purely secular. In other words, in the public space, we do not take our religious symbols there, like in the schools, in the courts, in any public space. Everybody, you appear secular. Well, that's one solution. That is not. Another solution is the solution of complementarity, of interwovenness, interconnectivity, by which we say, let us not just be secularly tolerant of each other, let us move tolerance to a point of empathy, a point of empathic understanding, in which, like, we cook rice and beans and soup and all the ingredients penetrate themselves, so that when we are eating rice and beans made together, porridge, rice and beans, we taste the rice in the beans, we taste the beans in the rice, and we taste the oil in the rice and the beans, the salt in the rice, and everything that's mixed. And so that's the way we look at our soup. We don't put our ingredients, tomato separate, pepper separate, onion separate, and then we begin to eat them one by one for them to get assemblage in the belly. Our soup is a soup whereby all the ingredients are interwoven. And so that approach says, bring your symbols to the public space. Let's all get used to the symbols. Then let's train ourselves in the mannerism of speech, of dialogue, using speech to dialogue. And that means we have to start the training from kindergarten. And so we begin to train the peoples, begin to train the children to learn how to dialogue amongst themselves, to learn how to operate on the principles of conscience, to learn how to operate on the principles of care, empathy, love, understanding the point of view of the other, subsuming yourself in the shoe of the other, feeling, empathizing with the other, understanding the other the way it is. When we interpenetrate, interconnect with each other, then the world will be such that we are no longer offended by anybody's religious symbol. Well, that would lead to what we call syncretism, and by which, when it is time for me as a traditionalist to perform my functions, the Christians, the Muslims, and every other people will join me. If I am building my shrine, they join me. They contribute in building it. When they are building their church, I contribute. They are building their mosque, I contribute. Everybody will contribute. It's everybody's responsibility. No one discriminates. And when I'm doing my festival, everybody joins me. This kind of world is not impossible. We see it in most parts of Africa, particularly here in Nigeria. We see it in the midst of the likes of the Yoruba people, the Uchi people, those people that have Islam and Christianity sandwiched in their culture. And so, to escape the battle of crisis, religious crisis, what they did was to make the African traditional religion the foundation of their social relationship. So it is common for you to go to a typical Yoruba home, say an extended family of a Yoruba, among the Yoruba. You are going to see an imam, you see a pastor, you see a reverend priest, you see a babalawo. And when they are doing festival, you see all of them, they come together. When it is time for what they call Ileya, that's the Muslim festival that they kill ram. You see the Christians calling, keep my own ram, oh. If you don't keep my ram, I am going to deal with you. In fact, when they are killing, the Yorubas are killing the ram, it is more for the other, their relations that are not Muslims than for them. And then you see the Babalawo will come. When he's killing his, what they call Odun Ifa, they are doing an Ifa festival, and he's killing his ram. The Muslims and the Christians are there. And when they come, they take the meat. Yeah, the Christian will say, I pray over it in the name of blood of Jesus. And then the traditionalists and the Christians will say, and the Muslims will say, you people are always eating the blood of Jesus. And the Catholics are eating the body of Jesus, drinking his blood. You see, they make jest of themselves. They laugh and roll on the ground. And you hear, Jesus God, Jesus God, Labi, Nifa. And then the thing about the Yorubas is that when they have problem, they will call the imam, please look into it. They call the Babalawo, look into it. They call the Christian Ladura or whoever, look into it. And oftentimes, the results are the same. So they have shown that we can the spiritualities can be a practical thing. That's my take there. Thank you.
Beautiful. Well, very well put. I appreciate that. That was just very concise and very educational. And I'm sure that the audience right now, thinking to themselves, wow, I may have gotten this all wrong, thinking that there's really this, a difference in how we see the world. Right? And to come and find out that, no, we really see the world the same way. We just express it differently. And the reason why we're expressing it differently, again, is what it is that we have to do to survive in our environment. That's how supplication methods develop. And that's why you see different rules, even though we're all trying to do the same thing. I mean, it's number one, it's an acknowledgement of a higher being. Number two is acknowledgement that without this higher being, you never would have existed. And all the things that you use to survive, like the water you're drinking, the rain that comes, the sun from the sky, the fish you eat, the animals, the land that you toil, the corn or yams that you plant, and you harvest them and you eat that, and your fellow human beings, whom you marry, the opposite sex to procreate. It's all tied in. We're no different from each other. All religions, for the most part, believe in a creator, believe in supplication to this creator, and develop creeds that are specific to a particular culture, but encompasses things that we have in common. A religious creed is a statement of religious community and shared beliefs, often in the forms of a brief affirmation of faith. That's what it is. And they serve so many different purposes. They regulate theological thinking. Creeds can help theological, spiritual institutions, churches, what have you. It's all about name calling and what you call it. But it helps these organizations avoid straying into heresy and saying things that are not identifiable with a particular faith, or things that just don't foster good relationship with the creator and also with a fellow human being or environment. It's a clarifying document. It clarifies doctrinal points, right? It helps to distinguish between truth from error and provide concise, basic teaching that is relevant to a particular culture or religion. Creeds provide focus for fellowship. It helps believers focus on the most important doctrines of their faith. That's what creeds do. Then within each philosophy or religious organization, you have other creeds, like in Christianism. You have the Apostles' Creed, you have the Nicene Creed. You have all kinds of creeds. All of them are part of how the institution functions. Part of them encompass new rules with old rules that are brought together to push a certain spiritual or religious agenda. One of the creeds in Christianism, for example, that pushes a particular doctrine, or even in Islam, is the idea of the only Son of God, the begotten Son of God, for whom without this Son of God, things will go awry. Okay, that's pushing a particular faith. In Islam, it is Muhammad is the last messenger, while Judaism doesn't recognize either one, but they're all Abrahamic. In African spirituality, part of what that identifies us is the idea that we believe that we should end deification of man and hang religion directly on Chineke, on God. The only acknowledgement that we have spiritually in Africa when it comes to Chineke is the idea that Madubuchi, we're like Chineke, we're like God to our fellow human beings, because most, if not all, of God's blessings, beyond the natural forces of nature, come from somebody. You need to pay your bills and you pray for money. You go out there, you work hard, or you even just ask somebody for help. When they grant your wish or help you to resolve your issue, Madubuchi Bear, that prayer that you prayed in the morning before you went and asked your friend for $100 to help you pay your bill, when your friend gives it to you, Chineke, God has answered and blessed you, answered your prayer and blessed you through your friend, through Dibia Chiedozie. That's how it works. And that's what this program has been about, to clarify the idea that, yes, we do have a lot in common than what separates us, based on the creed and belief systems that are core to all world religions, which is an acknowledgement of a creator, and also our responsibility to the creator, our environment, and our fellow human beings. Remember, love is the highest religion, and any religion, any spirituality that does not teach love and preach love and live love is no religion at all. We have come to the end of our program today. We're only running it for an hour and 30 minutes. And I want to send out a special prayer to Ugochukwu. I understand that he has some health challenges, so we pray that Chineke Genya Arusike, good health, long life, and prosperity. Ogologo ndu Arusike, and we pray that Chineke grants us all the same thing. Ugochukwu Charles has been a very valuable part of our ministry and of Cheersum Live, and has always, every Sunday, have always been part of our discussion. Either he's making some comments, on the comment sections, managing Global Faith Ministry of Cheersum's public relations, input from Port Harcourt in Nigeria. He has really, really, really been an important and a cherished part of our ministry and our effort to educate the world, not just Africans, but to foster, good relationships amongst all cultures, amongst all religions, to foster a better understanding of what we all have in common, not to look down on one another, to appreciate diversity in human in the world today, because diversity is it's divine. Nothing is created the same. All human beings don't look the same. You got black folks, white folks, Chinese, Asian, or whatever. Cats are not the same. All kinds of cats: lions, tigers, ocelots, house cat, puma, whatever. Dogs: greyhound, Alsatian, German Shepherd, a beagle, a collie, Dobermans. They're all dogs. Trees: Iroko tree, the red wood tree. But they're all trees. Grasses, all kinds of grass. Nothing is the same. Even the clouds are different. Stratocumulus, cumulus clouds, they're all different. Nothing is the same in this world. And we shouldn't act and treat each other like the diversity that we see in our world is a curse to certain people. No, it's not. That's what makes life fun. That's what makes life worth living. My understanding of the European is only going to add to my understanding of people and an appreciation for the diversity. If you go to Venice, you can go there and enjoy the culture. You could go to Rome, the Vatican City, you can enjoy that. You could go to China and enjoy the Great Wall of China. You could go to India, see the Taj Mahal. And if we had any sense, if you came to Nigeria, you can see them through the pyramids in Ivory. But right now, we will settle for Egypt. We will also settle for Senegal. They have a statue over there in Senegal that is 160 years old. At least it's something that Africa has contributed to the rest of the world to show that we too are capable of original thinking and doing things to promote African spirituality. Thank you, and African history. Thank you so much for joining us. Dibachi Edozie. Now we appreciate you joining us, and you have been flawless. And God will continue to bless you and bless your family. If you and for the rest of us, you all have a good day. Bye-bye. Okay, man.